Assalomu alaykum. Bugun sizlar bilan Yaqin Sharq mintaqasida 20 kundan buyon davom etib kelayotgan urushga to'xtalib o'tamiz. Bu urushni AQSh va Isroil tomoni operatsiya deb nomlaydi, ya'ni Amerika tomoni Operation Epic Fury deb nomlasa, Isroil tomoni esa Operation Roaring Lion deb nomlaydi. Agar biz buni harbiy jihatdan tahlil qiladigan bo'lsak, bu to'laqonli bosqinchilik urushi sanaladi. Shu nuqtai nazardan biz ham qisqacha qilib buni urush deb nomlaymiz. Bilasiz, bu urush 28-fevralda tong saharda AQSh va Isroilning qo'shma hamkorligidagi aviatsiya hujumi natijasida boshlangan edi. Aynan urushning birinchi kunida AQSh ulkan ikkita taktik xatoga yo'l qo'ygandi. Ya'ni birinchisi bu o'sha Minob shahrida joylashgan o'quvchi qizlar maktabi bo'ldi. Aynan mana shu o'quvchi qizlar maktabiga yo'llangan zarba natijasida 180 ga yaqin 170 dan ortiq o'quvchi qizlar va o'qituvchilar vafot etdi. Va ikkinchisi esa bu Iron oliy rahnamosi Ali Xomeyniyning o'ldirilishi bo'ldi. Albatta, urush olib borishning ham o'zining tartib qoidalari va mezonlari bo'ladi. Ammo ko'ryapmizki, hozirgi bo'layotgan urushlarda bir qancha davlatlar bunga amal qilayotgani yo'q. Hatto mana bu Ukraina va Rossiya urushida ham ko'rishimiz mumkin. Ko'ryapmizki, Rossiya tomoni Ukrainaning bir qancha aholi infratuzilmalariga zarbalar yo'llamoqda. Elektr ta'minoti yoki ichimlik suvi ta'minoti tizimlariga, shifoxonalar, maktablar va hokazo. Agar 28-fevralgacha bo'lgan aynan mana shu holatni agar tahlil qiladigan bo'lsak, ya'ni AQShning rejasi yoki Isroilning rejasi qanday degan holatga to'xtaladigan bo'lsak, yanvar oyida Eronda katta namoyishlar bo'ldi, ya'ni hukumatga qarshi. Aynan mana shuni AQSh va Isroil takrorlaymiz degan rejasi bor edi, qaysidir ma'nodaki, ya'ni Netanyahu o'zining bayonotlarida ham aytayaptiki, Eron xalqi hukumatni o'z qo'lingizga oling degan bir bayonotni da'vat etmoqda. Aynan mana shu fonda aytishimiz mumkin, Eron xalqining tarqoq holatga keltirish, zaiflashtirish maqsad qilingan edi. Lekin aynan mana shu o'quvchi qizlar maktabiga yo'llangan zarba natijasida AQShning o'ziga yoki Isroil ikkalasining ham holatiga teskari ishlab ketdi. Ya'ni o'quvchi qizlar maktabiga yo'llangan zarbasi. Va bundan tashqari o'sha Eron oliy rahnamosi Ali Xomeyniyning o'ldirilishi ham Eron xalqining g'azabini va qahrini karrasiga oshirib yubordi. Ya'ni ularning tarqoq holatga kelishiga emas, aksincha ularning yanada birlashishiga olib keldi. Aynan mana shu urushda boshlangunga qadar 3 ta muzokaralar raundi bo'lgandi. 6-fevralda Ummonda, 18 va 26-fevrallarda Jenevada bo'lgandi. Bu urushga qarshilar AQShning o'zida ham bor edi. Demokratlarning barchasi qarshi edi. Respublikachilar orasida ham ma'lum bir darajada bor edi bu urushga qarshi. Hatto Trampning jamoadoshlari, ya'ni kollektivi ichida ham bu urushga bir qancha qarshilar bor edi. Hatto shunday xabarlarda ham bor ekanki, davlat kotibi Marko Rubio ham aynan mana shu Eronga qarshi urushga qarshi bo'lgan ekan. Hatto vitse-prezident J.D. Vance ham Eronga urushga qarshi bo'lgan ekan. Aynan mana shu urushda AQSh qurolli kuchlari shtab qo'mitasi rahbari general Dan Keyn ham Trampga aytgan ekanki, Eron bu Venesuela emas, Eronga qarshi urushni boshlamasligimiz kerak. Bunga agar boshlaydigan bo'lsak, bu juda katta zarar va talofat ko'rishimiz mumkin ekan degan bir bayonot aytgan ekan. Ya'ni u aytmoqchiki, ya'ni bu urushga hatto o'sha general Dan Keyn ham qarshi bo'lgan. Hatto 4-mart kuni shunday bir voqea ham bo'ldiki, AQShda, ya'ni Senat tinglovida bir AQSh sobiq dengiz piyodasi faxriysi Brian McGinnis ismli bir AQSh harbiysi sobiq Senat tinglovida shunday bir gaplarni aytdiki, ya'ni Israel is the reason for this war. No one wants to fight for Israel degan bir bayonotlarni aytib o'tdi. Yani albatta bundan bilishimiz mumkin, ya'ni amerikaliklarning o'zlari ham aynan mana shu urushga qarshi ekanliklarini. Albatta bu asosan hukumat tepasidagilar, ya'ni bilamiz, AQShda albatta Isroil lobbisi, ya'ni yahudiylar lobbisi nihoyatda kuchli bo'lganligi sababli ham aynan mana shu urush boshlandi deyishimiz mumkin. Ya'ni Netanyahu o'z rejasiga erishdi. Ya'ni Netanyahu o'zining orzularidan biriga erishdi deyishimiz mumkin. Aynan Amerikani Eron urushiga aralashtirib. Va bir qancha mana 17-mart kuni shunday bir holat bo'ldiki, ya'ni o'sha AQShning aksilterror markazi direktori Jo Kent ham o'z iste'fosi bilan, demak, ya'ni iste'fosini talab qildi, ya'ni berdi, ya'ni iste'foga chiqdi. Aksilterror bo'linmasi rahbari. Albatta bu aksilterror markazi bo'linmasida, demak, FQB, ya'ni Federal qidiruv byurosi, MRB, markaziy razvedka, Pentagon, ichki xavfsizlik xizmati, barcha o'sha 4 ta kuch ishlatar tizim xodimlari bitta jamoaga yig'iladi, ya'ni aksilterrorga. Va albatta bu AQSh Milliy xavfsizlik agentligi deb nomlanadi. Albatta bunga ayol kishi Tulsi Gabbard ismli ayol kishi rahbarlik qiladi. Albatta bu Tulsi Gabbardga o'sha Jo Kent eng yaqin maslahatchisi edi, ya'ni o'rinbosar maslahatchisi edi. Va albatta bu o'z, demak, AQShning aynan mana shu Eronga qilgan hujumi yoki urushi natijasida o'z iste'fosini, demak, aytib o'tdi. Ya'ni iste'foga chiqdi. Uni hatto ijtimoiy tarmoqlarda ham bu, demak, anchagina mashhur bo'lib ketdi video, tarqalib ham ketdi. O'sha iste'foga chiqqan kuniyoq o'sha dunyodagi eng mashhur jurnalist, boshlovchi deyimiz mumkin, o'sha Tucker Carlsonga intervyu berdiki, va u endi qisqacha agar holatlar, jarayonlarni aytadigan bo'lsak, Eron AQShga hech qanday xavf tug'dirmagan, hatto Eronda ham yadro quroli bo'lishi ehtimoli deyarli bo'lmagan. 2004-yilda o'sha Eron oliy rahnamosi Ali Xomeynay yadroviy qurolga fatvo qo'ygan ekan degan bayonotlarda ham aytib o'tdi o'sha sobiq aksilterror markazi rahbari Jo Kent. Bizni bu AQShga, ya'ni AQShni bu Eron urushiga Isroil lobbisi, ya'ni yahudiylar, Benjamin Netanyahuning AQShga bir qancha safarlari natijasida bu holatga erdi. Ya'ni Donald Trampni aynan mana shu urushga jalb qildi, aynan Isroil lobbisi degan bayonotni ham aytib o'tdi. Va albatta meni bu bayonotimdan keyin mening ham izimdan tushishini bilaman degan bayonotlarni ham aytdi. Hatto FQB aynan mana shu jarayondan keyin uning ortidan tushibdi. Shunday manbalarda ham xabarlar chiqdi aynan mana shu holat bo'yicha. Jo Kentning o'zi sobiq harbiy, ya'ni Iroqda xizmat qilgan, ya'ni 11 marta Yaqin Sharq mintaqalarida xizmatda bo'lgan sobiq veteran hisoblanadi. Va uning rafiqasi 2019-yilda vafot etgandi, Yaqin Sharq mintaqasida xizmat qilayotgan paytda. Albatta Isroilning ya'ni dronlar hujumi natijasida. Aynan mana shu onda, ya'ni Jo Kent 2022-yilda hatto kongressga ham saylanish arafasida bo'lgan, ammo u muvaffaqiyatsiz yakunlangan. Albatta bu urushga qarshilar har doim topilgan va urushni qo'llovchilar ham har doim topilgan. AQShda har ikkala taraf ham anchagina zarar ko'rmoqda. Ya'ni Eron tomoni 1,5 mingga yaqin qurbon mavjud, 1400 dan ortiq, 1500 ga yaqin, 18 mingdan ortiq jarohatlanganlar bor. Amerika tomonida esa 13 nafar harbiysi halok bo'ldi, 200 nafar esa jarohatlangan. Bundan tashqari boshqa arab mintaqalaridagi davlatlarda ham qurbonlar va jarohatlanganlar bor. Urushning 6 kuni AQShga 11,3 milliard dollarga tushdi. Bor-yo'q hali bir hafta ham bo'lmasa, ya'ni 6 kuni, urushning 6 kuni. Hozir mana shu 20 kuni mutaxassislar shunday bir manbalar chiqyaptiki, AQShga 25 milliard dollarga tushganligi aytilmoqda. Aynan mana shu kungacha bo'lgan urushdagi sarf xarajatlar. Va mana kuni kecha shunday bir xabarlar chiqdiki, urush vaziri, Pentagon rahbari Pet Hegseth o'zining murojaatida Kongressga 200 milliard dollar so'rab murojaat qildi, aynan urushni davom ettirish uchun. Ko'ryapmiz, mana bu AQSh Yaqin Sharq mintaqasida bir qancha katta inshootlarga, binolarga, demak, albatta bu harbiy infratuzilmalarga zarbalar yo'llamoqda va bu urush nuqtai nazaridan aytishimiz mumkin. Havo hujumidan mudofaa tizimlarini ham anchagina faol holatga keltiryapti deyishimiz ham mumkin. Ya'ni uzoq sharqdan yaqin sharqqa o'zining havo hujumidan mudofaa tizimlarini olib kelmoqda. Ya'ni Janubiy Koreyada Osan aviabazasida 7-martdan 11-mart oralig'ida o'sha C-17 Globemaster va C-5 Galaxy yuk transport samolyotlaridan Seongju'dagi joylashgan harbiy bazasidan SAT mudofaa tizimlarini yaqin sharqqa ko'chirdi. Albatta bu SAT mudofaa tizimi har bitta raketasi 13 million dollar turadi, bir dona raketasining o'zi. Bu uzoq masofadagi nishonlarni va nihoyatda yuqori bo'lgan ballistik raketalarni yo'q qilish uchun ixtisoslashtirilgan va maxsus ishlab chiqarilgan mudofaa tizimi sanaladi. Va bundan tashqari Turkiyaning Malatya shahriga Patriot mudofaa tizimlari ham joylashtirildi. Ya'ni bilamiz, Turkiya demak NATO a'zosi bo'lgani sababli aynan mana shu nuqtai nazardan qaysidir ma'noda aytishimiz mumkin. Albatta bu yerda Turkiya shu mudofaa tizimlariga nafaqat katta mablag' sarflayotgan bo'lsa-da, ammo mutaxassislar va tahlilchilar aytayaptiki, aynan Eronning hujumi qilgan, ya'ni qilingan hujum natijasida aynan NATO havo hujumidan mudofaa tizimiga tayandi. Ya'ni albatta bu yerda ko'rishimiz mumkin bo'lyapti. Ya'ni buni tahlilchilar aytayaptiki, Turkiyada harbiy qudrat bo'lganligi yoki katta mablag' ajratayotgan bo'lsa-da, bunisiga qaramay baribir NATO havo hujumidan mudofaa tizimiga tayanmoqda degan bayonotni aytib o'tmoqda tahlilchilar. Albatta bu Yaqin Sharq mintaqasidagi davom etayotgan urush demak bir qancha butun dunyoga demak global energiya resurslari tanqisligini albatta keltirib chiqarmoqda. Hormuz bo'g'ozining albatta yopilishi bir qancha neft va energiya ko'p iste'mol qiladigan davlatlarga muammolar tug'dirmoqda. Hozirda Brent markali neftning narxi 115 dollardan ham oshdi bir barreliga. Hormuz bo'g'ozi orqali dunyo neftining 20-25% atrofidagi bo'lgan qismi aynan mana shu Hormuz bo'g'ozi orqali o'tadi. Albatta bu hozir yopilganligi sababli Eron tomoni shunday bir bayonotni bergandiki, bir necha kun oldin AQSh va Isroildan tashqari boshqa bir qancha davlatlar bemalol o'tishi mumkin degan bayonotni aytgandi. Ammo mana yaqinda xabar chiqdiki, agar o'sha Hormuz bo'g'ozidan xavfsiz o'tmoqchi bo'lgan davlatlar bizga, ya'ni Eron tomoni aytayaptiki, ma'lum bir tarzda mablag' to'lashi kerak. Albatta dollarda emas, yuanda, ya'ni Xitoy yuanida bizga to'lov qilishi kerak xavfsiz o'tishi uchun degan bayonotlarni ham berdi Eron tomoni. Va albatta bu Hormuz bo'g'oziga yaqin demak bo'lgan joyda o'sha Xark oroli mavjud. Albatta bu Xark oroliga AQSh o'zining bir qancha zarbalarini yo'llagan edi. Bu Xark orolida AQSh albatta neft sanoatidagi joylarga albatta tegingani yo'q. Aeroportlar, o'sha Eron Islom inqilobi qo'riqchilari binosi, qurol ishlab chiqaradigan yoki va saqlanadigan inshootlarga zarbalar yo'llandi. Yaqin Sharq mintaqasida demak mana bu Hormuz bo'g'ozi orqali demak Tramp o'zining bayonotlarida aytayaptiki, bu Hormuz bo'g'ozini nazoratga olishimiz kerak va buni zararsizlantirishimiz kerak degan bir bayonotni ham aytib o'tdi va dunyo yetakchilarining davlatlarini Xitoy, Yaponiya, Janubiy Koreya, Britaniya, Fransiya va boshqa bir qancha davlatlarga aytib o'tdi. Aynan mana shu Hormuz bo'g'ozini ozod qilish masalasi bo'yicha va albatta bularning barchasi rad javobini berdi. Albatta yumshoq ma'noda aytdiki, biz bu urushga qo'shilish niyatimiz yo'q degan bir muloyim tarzdagi javobni aytdi. Va aynan hozir mana bu Yaqin Sharqda mintaqalarda davom etayotgan mojaroda AQSh anchagina nihoyatda katta mablag' sarflamoqda. Hatto shuni bir aytishimiz mumkin, AQSh o'zining bir qancha qimmatli texnikalardan ham ayrildi. Bilamiz, ya'ni Kuvaytda o'sha o'zining 3 ta qiruvchi samolyotini yo'qotdi. Ya'ni deyarli $300 million atrofida turadigan qiruvchi samolyotlar, o'sha F-15E Eagle qiruvchi samolyotlari. Albatta bu friendly fire deydi, ya'ni do'stona tarzdagi o't ochish natijasida Kuvayt qurolli kuchlar tomonidan urib tushirildi albatta bu. Va bundan tashqari o'sha AQShning KC-135 yonilg'i quyish samolyoti ham Iroq hududida halokatga uchradi va buni halokatga uchrashi natijasida 6 nafar AQSh harbiysi halok bo'ldi. Va bundan tashqari bir qancha o'sha Qatarda joylashgan o'sha radar tizimlari ham ishdan chiqarildi. Albatta bu radar tizimlar bir qancha $1000 turadigan dronlar orqali yo'q qilinmoqda. Aynan mana shularni hisobga olgan holda AQSh harbiylar yoki rasmiylar ya'ni Ukrainaga murojaat qildi. Ya'ni albatta Ukrainada bu shahid dronlariga qarshi kurashish tajribasi nihoyatda katta. Chunki Ukraina Rossiya urushi boshlanganda Eron Rossiyaga bir qancha shahid dronlarni yetkazib bergan edi. Hozirda Rossiyaning o'zi aynan shahid dronlarni Geran nomi ostida ishlab chiqarmoqda. Albatta Ukraina juda yaxshi biladi aynan bu dronlarga qarshi qanday kurashish ekanligini. Aynan Yaqin Sharq mintaqasida urush boshlanganda hatto Ukraina prezidenti Vladimir Zelenskiy ham aytib o'tdiki, hozir bilasiz, Ukrainada aynan havo hujumidan mudofaa tizimidagi raketa taqchilligi nihoyatda sezilmoqda va kuzatilmoqda. Ya'ni bu yerda PAK-3 Patriotning PAK-3 raketa tizimlari yetishmovchiligi sezilmoqda. Aynan mana shu fonda AQShga va NATO davlatlariga murojaat qildi. Ya'ni biz sizga havo hujumidan mudofaa tizimida arzon yechimlarni taklif qilamiz, siz esa bizga Patriotning PAK-3 raketa tizimlarini bering. Siz qayerdagi bir arzimagan bir necha $1000 turadigan dronlarga o'zingizning bir necha $1,000,000 turadigan raketalaringizni sarflayapsiz degan bir bayonotni aytib o'tgandi. Hatto 17-mart kuni o'sha Ukraina prezidenti Vladimir Zelenskiy Buyuk Britaniya parlamentidagi nutqda aytdiki, o'sha Yaqin Sharq mintaqasida joylashgan 4 ta arab davlatiga, Qatar, Birlashgan Arab Amirliklari, Saudiya Arabistoni va Kuvaytga 201 nafar ukrainalik harbiylar, ya'ni dron operatorlari bilan ishlovchi harbiylar allaqachon yetib borganligini va yana qo'shimcha tarzda 34 nafari yuborilish arafasida ekanligini aytib o'tdi. Ya'ni Ukraina o'zining P1 Sun deb nomlanadigan arzon dronlar tizimini Yaqin Sharq mintaqasidagi davlatlarga aynan shu shahidlarni yo'q qilish uchun mo'ljallangan dron tizimlarini taklif qilgan. Albatta hozirda bularning demak ishlash, ya'ni o'rgatish va demak ishlash jarayoni amalga oshirilmoqda. Albatta arab davlatlaridagi demak ukrainalik harbiylar tomonidan. Albatta bu Patriotning bir dona raketasining o'zi $4 million turadi. Albatta bu shahid droni esa $30,000 dan $50,000 atrofida baholanadi. Qolaversa shahid droni nihoyatda past uchganligi sababli ularni radarlar payqash va urib tushirish anchagina noqulaylik tug'diradi. Shu nuqtai nazardan albatta bu gaplarni Vladimir Zelenskiy aytib o'tgan, ya'ni urush boshlanganda, ya'ni Yaqin Sharq mintaqasidagi urush boshlanganda. Va bundan tashqari Yaqin Sharq mintaqasidagi holatni, ya'ni eskalatsiyani ba'zi ekspertlar tugashini demak aytayotganligi ham bo'ldi. Va Trampda ham bu holatda demak jarayonda bir aniq bir reja mavjud emas. Holat hozirda, lekin mana bu Yaqin Sharq mintaqasidagi urushda, ya'ni Tramp boshida 4 yoki 6 hafta davom etishini aytgandi, ammo hozir ko'ryapmizki, urushning 3-haftasi ketmoqda. Aynan mana shu holatda aynan Hormuz bo'g'ozini, demak, harbiy kemalarni kuchaytirish nuqtai nazari fonida aytadigan bo'lsak, Yaponiya va Filippin qirg'oqlarida joylashgan AQShning USS Tripoli deb nomlangan amfibiya kemasi mavjud va bu kemaga, ya'ni qo'riqchi tarzda bir qancha esminetslar mavjud. USS Tripoli o'zi bilan 2,5 nafar dengiz piyodasini olib yura oladi va bundan tashqari ichida, ya'ni o'z bortida Tripoli V-22 Osprey jangovar vertolyoti va F-35B ko'p funksiyali qiruvchi samolyotlari mavjud. Aynan bular jalb qilish orqali Hormuz bo'g'ozini, demak, qo'lga olish, nazoratga olish, demak, Tramp tomonidan qaysidir ma'noda reja qilinayotgan bo'lishi ham mumkin. Va o'zining bayonotida, ya'ni 19-mart kuni Oq uyda Yaponiya bosh vaziri Sanai Takaichi bilan bo'lgan suhbatda jurnalistlar Trampga shunday bir savol berdiki, Eronga qarshi quruqlikdan operatsiya o'tkazasizmi degan bir savol berganda, Tramp shunday javob berdi: biz Eronga qarshi quruqlikdan operatsiya o'tkazishni reja qilayotganimiz yo'q degan bayonotni aytdi. 6-mart kuni shunday bir xabar ham chiqdiki, AQSh tomonidan Eronga quruqlikda operatsiya boshlash rejasi va albatta boshlanadigan bo'lsa, AQShning 82-havo desant diviziyasi harbiylari kelishi mumkin dedi. Ya'ni bu AQShning 82-havo desant diviziyasi dunyoning istalgan nuqtasiga 18 soat ichida yetib borib, albatta buyruq berilgan holatdan borib yetib o'z missiyalarini, vazifalarini bajarishi mumkin. 82-havo desant diviziyasi tarkibida 4000-5000 atrofida harbiylar mavjud. Aynan mana shu fonda aytishimiz mumkin, Yaqin Sharq mintaqasida, demak, hozir davom etayotgan mana bu ziddiyatning qanday natija bilan tugashi, yakunlanishi hozircha hech kim, biror bir mutaxassis aniq aytib bera olmaydi. Ammo urush fonini agar kuzatishimiz mumkin, Eron tomoni ham ma'lum bir darajadagi yutuqlar aytishimiz mumkin, AQSh tomonidan ham ma'lum bir darajadagi yutuqlarni aytishimiz mumkin. Agar AQSh quruqlikda operatsiya o'tkazadigan bo'lsa, shunchaki gipotetik tasavvur qilaylik, bu yerda Trampning fokusi qaratilganki, ya'ni Eronda saqlanayotgan o'sha 400 kilogramdan ortiqroq bo'lgan boyitilgan uranni qo'lga kiritish yoki bo'lmasam yo'q qilish, aynan mana shu reja qilingan. Lekin quruqlikdan operatsiya o'tkazish rejasi yo'qligini aytgani sababli balkim keyinchalik jarayon, mana bu urush fonida qaysidir ma'noda jarayonda, ya'ni urush jarayonidan kelib chiqqan holda balkim keyinchalik amalga oshirilishi mumkin, agar qaysidir ma'noda rejalar o'xshamay qolsa. Hatto mana bu kuni kecha 19-mart kuni Eron tomoni AQShning so'nggi 5-avlod qiruvchi samolyoti F-35 Stealth ko'p funksiyali Stealth samolyotini urib tushirganini da'vo qildi, ammo AQSh tomoni esa aytdiki, ya'ni samolyot eson-omon yerga qo'ndi, anchagina jiddiy shikastlangan, uchuvchi esa eson-omon qo'nib oldi. Ya'ni favqulodda bu samolyot qo'nishni amalga oshirdi degan bir bayonotni aytib o'tdi, ammo aniq batafsil ma'lumotlar hozircha chiqayotgani yo'q.
In our closed-door briefings, we learned that that is in fact not a goal of our war plan. That it is not a goal of the war to destroy their nuclear program, which is, of course, not surprising because you cannot destroy Iran's nuclear program from the air. You cannot, A, destroy knowledge. You cannot hunt down with missiles every single Iranian scientist that knows how to build a nuclear reactor, and the material is buried so far under the ground to be immune to an air campaign. So yes, it stands to reason that one of the goals of this war is not to destroy the nuclear program, but then why is the President and the Department of Defense telling us that the point of the war is to destroy their nuclear program? They are not telling the truth. about this girls' school that was hit on the first day. They are not telling the truth about the aims of the war. And as we learn more in our closed-door briefings, we learn how unbelievably unprepared they were for the fallout.
Iran has not attacked the United States. Congress has not declared war, and Congress has not granted specific statutory authorization. Beyond the constitutional question, here lies an even more important one. Why are we going to war with Iran? Have we learned nothing from the laundry list of wars and regime change experiments we sparked across the Middle East that have racked up a total of at least $8 trillion of debt in Iraq, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan? A sustained war with Iran will not stabilize the region. It's already ignited the region. It will radicalize new generations of terrorists, and it will send more swarms of refugees into Europe and the United States. Iran is not Venezuela. The Ayatollah was not a president. He was a religious leader from a region notorious for radical Islamists. And the United States and Israel turned him into a martyr. And in the process of doing so, we've already expended billions of dollars, and more solemnly, 6 American families must now lay to rest their sons and daughters. This administration can't even give us a straight answer as to why we launched this preemptive war. The president says we had to strike first because an Iranian strike was imminent. Meanwhile, the Department of Defense conceded there was no evidence of an imminent Iranian strike. Some told us this war was about nuclear weapons, but 6 months ago, we were assured our last strike on Iran decimated their nuclear program. So which is it? I think the most candid answer came from the Secretary of State, who told the press that Israel forced our hand and dragged us into this war again. And that truth is the very reason why it is Congress that must decide war. If American lives are to be risked and American blood is to be shed, that decision must be debated and voted on by the representatives of the American people. And that debate is meant to be arduous. And that vote is meant to be hard. I have a theory. I think my colleagues don't want to go on record because we have a terrible track record of meddling in the Middle East. They don't want their name associated with this when it doesn't turn out well. But Congress cannot be bothered with its constitutional duty because for many in this chamber, it's easier to simply allow someone else's sons and daughters to be sent to combat without their vote. And to be clear, we aren't even here to declare war today. All we're voting on is a war powers resolution to reassert the Constitution, that Congress must decide questions of war. And if Congress wants war, then the Speaker should hold a vote to declare it.
Director Gabbard, last year you testified that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon. Do you stand by that statement? Yes or no?
Context matters with that statement.
Yes or no?
Iran had all of the materials and capabilities to do so.
It's an easy answer. You either stand by what you said last year or not.
It is a serious question that requires the totality
Director
of the
Gabbard, I
information
reclaim my
available.
time. When President Trump was asked about testimony, he said you were wrong. Were you lying or not?
I stand by the intelligence
Great.
community's
With that,
complete assessment.
Trump also said he didn't care what you thought or said. Should he care about what you have to say when it comes to intelligence?
I continue to provide the president with the intelligence community's assessments on all matters.
So let me just kind of get this straight. At the beginning of this war, he said that there were weeks away. I just want to kind of get a sense of, were they weeks away of achieving a nuclear weapon? Yes or no?
Congressman, this is a serious matter, and you've made some very serious mischaracterizations
yes
here.
Or no? Were they weeks
and so
away?
It would be
yes
a
or no?
disservice to you and the American people to answer this question with a mere yes or no.
Reclaiming my time. Were they weeks away or not? The American people need to know if this was an imminent threat or not. If they're weeks away or not. If they're months away or not. None of this dodging. Were they an imminent threat? Imminent, to me, means is that they're mobilizing troops. They're moving things into position, artillery. They're getting ready to attack. But everything that we've heard is that this is not the case.
Gentleman's time has expired.
You often hear its promoters, its lobbyists say, Israel just wants to fight its own wars. Back off and let us do it. Is that not?
I'd love us to run the experiment. We try that.
What would happen?
You know, the Israelis, again, they have they have the ability to go out and collect great intelligence. They have a very capable military, but they're a very small country. I think Israel would be able to defend itself. I think it could conduct, limited strikes on its borders. I think it could continue carrying out pretty impressive targeted assassinations.
Yes.
Against its adversaries. And so I think you would see it relatively contained. What it couldn't do is go topple entire governments. It couldn't do something like the Iran war, the Iraq war. It couldn't aggressively, destabilize Syria. These big, heavy lifts of regime change that America has been engaged in, Israel could not do on their own, which is where you get back to the Israeli lobby being just so potent and so powerful and so aggressive.
Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon?
No, they weren't, 3 weeks ago when this started, and they weren't in June either. I mean, the Iranians have had a religious ruling, a fatwa, against actually developing a nuclear weapon since 2004. That's been in place since 2004. That's available in the public sphere. But then also we had no intelligence to indicate that fatwa was being disobeyed or it was on the cusp of being lifted. The Iranian strategy, it's actually pretty pragmatic. The Iranians are obviously aware of what's taking place in their region, and their strategy was to not completely abandon their nuclear program because they saw what happened to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya when he said, hey, I've got no more nukes. I'll do what you say. I'll give up my nukes. Like we just killed, Ali Laranjani, who was a negotiator, who was eager to get us a deal. Again, look, I've got no love for the IRGC. I've got no love for the Iranians. But you've got to realize,
just to be clear,
if you want it to end,
in case you're treating it now, you fought their proxies.
I fought their proxies. I mean, I put countless of them in flex cuffs or much worse. I've gone after the Iranians. I was in specialized outfits that went after the Iranians and their proxies. These are very serious people. They're not supermen by any means. They're humans, but they're serious. And if you give the IRGC a reason to take more control and they get support from the people, because again, you kill off the Ayatollah, they can say, hey, the last guy was too moderate. Look at what it got us. Like, give us more control.
I get it.
And the Iranian people are going to be like, well, actually, yeah, I don't like getting bombed by the Americans and the Israelis. Maybe we do need to listen to the IRGC.
You believe there was reason to investigate foreign ties to Charlie Kirk's murder and were told by the FBI, DOJ?
FBI and DOJ, yeah.
No, you're not allowed to investigate that.
Stop. It's done. Basically cut off our access to be able to get into that information. I didn't even say necessarily that I believe there's 100% foreign ties. There were data points that we needed to investigate that pertained to some kind of a foreign nexus that we were stopped from investigating.
That just strikes me as inconceivable that could happen. What were you told was the reason to prevent you as a federal intelligence official from looking into the murder when you had reason to look into it?
We basically were told that, hey, we'll get back to you if we find any kind of foreign ties. Meanwhile, we had already dug up a decent amount of leads. Again, I'm not saying that we had anything concrete, but we found more work that we needed to do. We were then told, you guys need to stop. You can't work on this anymore.
This decision to follow your conscience, give us a little backstory. How did that happen?
It was a promise I made to myself probably 20 plus years ago when I was deployed to Iraq. Once I realized after my first couple deployments that we weren't there for the reasons that our government told us we were there for, I said, if it's ever my turn, if I'm ever an adult in this situation, I ever have a position of responsibility, I will not in good conscience send young men and women off to die on foreign battlefields. We're at a critical juncture in the war in Iran. We need to let our leaders hear that we do not support this war. We do not think there's a vital national security interest. We want to bring our troops home. We want to work towards peace in that region. We do not want 20 plus more years of bloodletting. And then as we head into this next election cycle, demand from everyone, from every political party, go to them, go to your representatives and say, I will not vote for you if you are going to vote for the continuation of these wars overseas. Or we cannot continue to go down this path. We have to make that clear to our leaders. That's what gives me hope. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing in the stairway, and I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and it's a small. You've been in the West Wing. It's small. It's a tight space, and he said, "Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran." Very loudly.
He was single-minded,
and he walked off, and he went, I believe, into the Oval. So when one of President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis. and then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that. It's a data point. It's a data point that we need to look into.
That's 18 different agencies that have to chop on this. So getting the 18 intelligence agencies to agree on anything, it's very challenging. It is a very laborious and it's sometimes a very intense process of coordination and having people argue their cases. When you have the 18 intelligence agencies saying without a doubt that Iran is not working towards a nuclear weapon, and the Defense Intelligence Agency doing battle damage assessment, which is what the DIA really specializes in, is having these military-based assessments, that's what I'm going to go with. Being influenced by the IAEA or by another government, Israel in this case, saying like, oh no, even though you conducted Midnight Hammer and your 18 intelligence agencies say that their nuclear capability is gone, they're still somehow digging out from the rubble, and they're going to be able to assemble 10 bombs in 2 weeks. Again, sorry, I'm going with with what the director of national intelligence said, and she's saying that based on the research and the analysis and the rigorous debate of 18 intelligence agencies.
You just hate Jews. I will not.
No, I don't hate Jews.
Then why can't they live in the West Bank?
I hate disgusting,
why can't they live in the West Bank?
Propagandists
Why can't a Jew
who
live
treat
in
human
Gaza?
beings like trash like
Why
you.
can't-
Why? Because we're not foot soldiers for the Zionists? Is that why? Because we're not foot soldiers for Zionists?
And that is why they are a threat to the United States, they are a threat to Europe, and of course a threat to the region and to the Iranian.
Let me.
They're not a threat to the United States. They're a threat to Israel, and that's what your primary concern is. And I hate the fact that an organic demonstration has effectively been co-opted by Israeli interests who brag almost on a daily basis at this point about how they have Mossad on the ground. Am I supposed to take the Zionist who provides cover for Israel's genocide seriously on this? I don't take it seriously. Sorry.
If I were to ask you, are you a Zionist, what would you say?
Absolutely not. You can't be both. You can either be a Jew or a Zionist.
What are you? Were you consider yourself a Jew or a Zionist?
Jew.
So you're not a Zionist?
No.
You're not a Zionist at all?
No.
So according to you as a practicing Orthodox Jew, what is Zionism? What is it for the world to see?
Zionism is for people who wanted to change the Judaism, and they transformed it into something different that's totally isn't. They transformed it into a nationality, like there's a German nationality, like there's a French nationality.
Got you. They turned it into nationality.
Yeah, and most of them were not even religious or observing Jews.
Gotcha.
So it has nothing to do with the.
So as a practicing Jew yourself too, occupying that land is something that's completely wrong.
Especially if they are infringing on different people who were living there until they came, they have no right to infringe on these people's rights.
Israel is not the Jewish state.
This is not a Jewish state. It's a Zionist terrorist state.
It's a Zionist terrorist state.
Correct.
So why is it that they don't consider you? Look, a Jewish person is against that. Are you anti-Semitic?
Let me ask you, am I anti-Semitic?
Tell me, that's what they want to say. Anyone who's against them is anti-Semitic. You're a Jew, yeah, you're against them.
But the difference between Judaism and Zionism, Judaism is a religion, Zionism is nationalism. This has nothing to do with anti-Semitic. We Jews lived in peace with the Palestinian people hundreds of years, and we lived in peace and we can still live in peace. It's only because Zionism is the philosophy of there's a political movement.